My sister's grades are bizarre. If I score 500, she gets 510. If I push to 600, she instantly gets 610. Her score is always exactly 10 points higher than mine. But when I skipped an exam, her grades crashed. That confirmed my theory, her grades are bound to mine. A wild idea flashed in my mind. If I score over 740 on the college entrance exam, will she be utterly destroyed? Right before the big exam, I slaved away like a tireless beast of burden, while my sister spent her days partying. Relying on me, she ran wild with her deadbeat friends, completely giving up on school. Whenever she got caught, she just rolled her eyes and snapped. Stop nagging. I will definitely be the top scorer. I did not let her down. During every mock exam, I secured her place as number 1. I wanted her to lose herself in a daze of fake and blissful ignorance while I secretly pushed towards 741 points. My senior year felt like a dull knife slowly scraping my nerves. I woke before dawn and slept past midnight, no breaks except for eating and quick bathroom runs. I locked myself in my dark, windowless room, grinding like an unstoppable machine. My sister's room was right next door. I constantly heard her gossiping on the phone or laughing at trashy TV shows. Sometimes she blasted the volume just to show off how carefree she was. I did not care. I had learned to tune it all out. My mind only had room for one number, 741. It was like a nail driven deep into my heart. Whenever I wanted to give up, I pressed down on it. The pain kept me sharp. In March, Lin Zhaoxiao started sneaking into my room. At first, I ignored it, but then things felt off. Her gaze turned suspicious, like she was sizing me up. Once, while I was tackling a brutal math problem, she stood behind me, staring at my scratch paper. "Why so serious lately, bro?" she asked. I did not look up or stop writing, just preparing for the exam. Everyone is. She leaned in, trying to read my notes. "But you have never pushed yourself this hard before." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face completely expressionless. I sighed heavily, acting utterly exhausted. "You think I want to?" Dad said if I do not get into a 985 university, they will cut off my allowance. Her face relaxed immediately, her lips even curled into a smirk. "A 985 school? You?" She turned to leave, tossing one last jab over her shoulder. "Do not work too hard. The top scorer title is mine anyway." I just watched her leave in silence. Once the door clicked shut, I picked up my pen, a slow smirk spreading across my face. "Good. Keep looking down on me. The more you underestimate me, the safer I am." But her suspicion was not completely gone. Over the next few weeks, she kept probing my progress, asking which subjects were hardest and what my mock scores were. She even tried throwing insults to shake my confidence. I played along and countered every move. By controlling my mock scores, I stayed in the top 5, not too flashy, but enough to keep her from getting suspicious. My real trump cards remained hidden. The toughest concepts and advanced shortcuts were kept strictly in my head, practiced alone late at night. Afterward, I shredded my scratch paper and flushed it down the toilet, leaving no trace. One night while working on advanced math, I heard voices outside. Mom and Lin Zhaoxiao were talking. I cracked the door. "Just a crack. Zhaoxiao, is your brother working too hard? He locks himself in his room all day and barely eats." Lin Zhaoxiao laughed dismissively. "Mom, what are you worried about? No matter how hard he tries. What is his limit? No matter his score, I will always be 10 points higher. The harder he works, the more points I get, right?" "True, true. My daughter is so smart. Let him slave away then. He is basically working for you." Hearing this, I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. I forced myself to stay calm, quietly closed the door, and went back to work. One night in April, I heard a faint noise outside my door. I froze and listened. Quiet footsteps, light as if trying to avoid detection. Then the doorknob began to turn, agonizingly slow. I instantly realized she was spying on me. I did not turn around and kept pretending to study. but I had already swapped my advanced work for a basic easy worksheet. My real prep materials were locked deep in my drawer. The door cracked open. Out of the corner of my eye I saw half of her face peeking in, scanning my desk. I sighed loudly, whispering to myself, how did I miss this basic question? This is too hard. The door gently clicked shut and her footsteps faded away. Into the hallway I sat up and sneered. Lin Zhaoxiao, the more you spy on me, the more insecure you prove you are. You know damn well those scores are not yours, you are just a parasite. Without me you are absolutely nothing. In May I scored 690 on the mock. She got 700, taking first place. Our parents threw a massive celebration, showering her with praise while preparing a table full of her favorite dishes. I sat in the corner eating silently, like a ghost. Dad put down his chopsticks, looking at her with absolute pride. Great job, Zhaoxiao. Keep this up and the top university is yours. My daughter is a genius. She gets it from me, Mom beamed. Lin Zhaoxiao shot a smug look my way, smirking. Brother, you better step it up, do not fall too far behind or it will embarrass our parents. I just mumbled an agreement and kept eating, laughing coldly inside. Enjoy this high while you can. It is your last moment of glory. That night I tossed and turned in bed, running through every scenario of the upcoming college entrance exam. Over and over. June arrived and the exam was finally here. The night of June 6th she went drinking to celebrate early. Instead of stopping her, Mom handed her cash, telling her to relax, from my room. I watched through the crack of my door, feeling nothing but pure irony. I went to bed at 8 p.m., setting my alarm for 6 a.m. Lying in the dark, I was dead calm, like a swordsman awaiting battle. All my years of suffering would pay off tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up, grabbed a bite, and left. Mom drove her to the test center, casually telling me to do my best. I just nodded and walked away, thinking this is the last time. After today, our lives diverge. My desk was on the third floor, right next to a window. Warm sunlight streamed over me. I arranged my pens, sat back, and took a deep breath. I closed my eyes and whispered, you have waited 18 years for this moment. Do not fail. The starting bell rang. As I opened the exam booklet, my mind cleared instantly. Every single question felt like an old friend. Comfortingly familiar. I bypassed every trap in the reading comprehension. The essay prompt was a topic I had drafted dozens of times. My pen flew across the page. When it ended, she was waiting outside, wearing heavy makeup, yet masking a hint of panic. She demanded to know how I did. I replied it was fine. She frowned, pressing harder. What does fine mean? Did you miss any multiple choice? I almost laughed. She desperately needed to confirm my score to estimate her own. I do not know. I did not check the answer key. Pouting at my response, she turned and walked away without pushing further. Watching her go, I thought, why the rush? Your results will be out soon enough. You will get yours. But during the math exam that afternoon, disaster struck. My stomach suddenly cramped with blinding pain. Cold sweat drenched my clothes and I collapsed onto my desk. Gasping for air, the proctor hurried over and whispered, are you all right? Should we go to the clinic? I shook my head and gritted my teeth. I am fine. What a joke. I had waited 18 long years just for this one exam. Even if I died, I would die completing this test paper. I pinched my thigh brutally, using the sharp pain to override my stomach cramps. I kept writing even as the formulas began to blur before my eyes, yet I pushed through, finishing every question by sheer muscle memory. I double-checked the final problem using 3 different methods before putting down my pen. Walking out, I was so exhausted I had to find a quiet corner to collapse and catch my breath. She texted me immediately, asking about the math exam. I replied with a simple, normal. She sent back a smug emoji, confident she had won again. I stared at that emoji, finding it hilarious. Talk about how being totally ignorant makes you fearless. On the second day, my strength returned for science and English. These were my absolute best subjects. The physics, chemistry, and biology sections were all types of questions I had mastered. 1,000 times I breezed through them. With 20 minutes remaining, I double-checked every question to prevent any silly errors. English was even easier. The graders would have to try hard to dock me points. As the final bell rang, I stepped out. Standing near the entrance, I looked up. The sun was blinding, but I did not look away, letting the warmth hit my face. After 18 long years, I was finally free. Naturally, she blocked my path. First, she wore bright, flashy colors today, looking like a proud peacock. Greed flickering in her eyes. How did you do? She demanded. Amazing, I said. Better than ever before. Her eyes instantly lit up as if she had struck gold. She ran off to brag to our parents, yelling, Mom, Dad, he did amazing, so my score will be even higher. Watching her celebrate, I smiled. The hunter had finally trapped his prey. Look at my sister, Lin Jiaoxiao. She was acting like a moth flying straight into a flame, thinking it was the sun. The second college entrance exams ended, she completely let loose, boasting to our parents that she would rank in the top of the province. She got a massive advance on her allowance, bought top-tier phones and computers, and blew our parents' hard-earned savings partying with her friends. Her social media was a non-stop flex of eating, drinking, and living the high life. She had absolutely no sense of reality. One night I saw her post a photo at a fancy restaurant with the caption, celebrating the future top scorer in advance. Reading all those kissing up comments just made me feel sick. It was absurd. I wanted to visit my grandpa in the countryside and asked my parents for travel money. Before I could even finish, my mother shut me down. Without even looking up, she snapped, we have no money, don't you see Jiaoxiao needs it? Looking at her smug face made me sick. They wouldn't give me a single dime, but they showered my sister with cash. These were my parents. My dad sat on the couch watching television, adding without even turning around, if you want to go, figure it out yourself. Don't look to us for help. I did not say another word. The next morning, I went to a construction site and got a job hauling bricks. The sun was blinding and brutal, but I grit my teeth for 2 weeks to save up enough for travel and some gifts for Grandpa. Those 2 weeks were some of the hardest of my life, but I saved over 1,000 yuan. Enough for the round trip and some supplements. The day scores came out. Happened to be my sister's 18th birthday. To crown herself in her ultimate moment of glory, she threw a massive, lavish banquet. Every relative, colleague, and boss my parents knew showed up. The banquet hall was buzzing with endless praise and flattery as the crowd gathered. A distant relative walked up to my dad with a glass, beaming, saying our family must be blessed to have such successful kids. Another relative chimed in, sounding petty, saying the oldest brother just studies like a nerd with no real-world smarts. He is so clueless, while Jiaoxiao is sweet, smart, and 100 times better than him. The younger kids crowded around her like she was a celebrity. My cousin looked green with envy, telling her she was just too amazing. She said she was a true winner, about to get into top universities with a handsome boyfriend. They kept asking what time the portal opened so they could witness history. But my sister boasted that top schools would call her first. Right on cue, a phone rang, but it wasn't hers, it was mine. Under the stunned silence of the entire room, I answered call after call from the country's most elite universities, all begging me to join them. I politely thanked the recruiters, promising to consider my options. Meanwhile, my sister stared at her silent phone, her eyes practically popping out of her skull. Gritting her teeth, she tried to save face, whispering that the best is always saved for last. Finally, the official portal opened. Everyone crowded around, begging my sister to log in immediately. Meanwhile, I quietly pulled up the website on my phone from a corner of the room. Even though I knew I did well, my palms were sweating as the page loaded. My mother turned to me, casually asking what I got. I turned my screen toward the crowd and spoke with complete calm. I got 741 points, the room gasped. Internally, I was screaming with pure joy, but I kept my face blank. My mother froze, gave me a half-hearted nod, and immediately turned her back on me. She rushed straight to my sister, her voice trembling, quick, Jiaoxiao must have scored higher. Everyone crowded around her. With trembling fingers, she clicked the screen. The next second, her face completely froze. She looked like she had just swallowed a fly. There on the screen were 3 bright red numbers, 751. Her voice shook, and a dead silence fell over the room, except for one clueless relative. Wow, 751. 10 points higher than her brother. She is a genius. But if I recall correctly, the maximum score is only 750. The room went cold. She began to sweat. The sweat ruined her heavy makeup. She screamed that the system had crashed because of too many users. She frantically refreshed the page, stabbing at her screen over and over. But that impossible score wouldn't budge. The 751 points stayed locked on the screen. Someone suggested trying another phone. She snatched it like a lifeline, but the result was the same. That extra 1 point felt like a slap in the face. Just then, the double doors of the banquet hall burst open. Several police officers and Education Bureau officials marched in, looking incredibly grim. The lead officer scanned the room and demanded to know where my sister was. They announced she was under investigation for potential hacking and massive exam fraud due to her abnormal score. My sister collapsed onto the floor, her legs completely giving out. Her face pale as a ghost. Our parents panicked, but instead of comforting her, their instinct was to find a scapegoat. In the chaos, my mother grabbed me, threw me in front of the officers, and screamed that I was the one who did it. She claimed I was jealous of my sister and hacked the system. Here it was again. At the most critical moment, my parents did not hesitate to use me as a human shield. No matter how ridiculous their logic was. As long as their precious daughter was safe, they were happy to destroy me. Something inside me snapped, leaving me feeling strangely light. I yanked my arm away and looked at them, announcing I was actually the provincial top scorer. I am Lin Feng, the actual top scorer, while my sister is the fraud with the impossible 751. My dad rushed me with his hand raised, but I grabbed his wrist, staring him down. With officers right behind me and elite colleges fighting over me, I dared him to strike. From that moment on, nobody in that house had any power over me. No one was ever going to bully me again. Her grand celebration turned into a total disaster. My sister was escorted out, leaving a massive mess behind. You cannot hide an impossible exam score of 751, and by that night, the internet exploded. It topped the trending charts and the comments were brutal. People joked that she got too greedy buying points, while others pointed out that cheating with a 751 when the max is 750 is pure stupidity. They dug up her social media history, showing she spent the entire year partying instead of studying. The public dragged her relentlessly, convinced she had paid someone to hack her grades but ended up slipping up on the execution. Scrolling through the comments gave me an incredible sense of relief. For 18 years I had waited to show everyone the truth. The investigation was quick, revealing that her answer sheet was severely glitched with impossible scanning errors. A scanning error had handed her an extra point, though they could not prove she cheated. For fairness, the Bureau ordered her to retake the exam alone under strict monitoring. When that news reached our house, my sister was lounging on the couch when she heard. She practically hit the ceiling, her face turning a sickly white as she shrieked. "What do you mean retake? Why on earth do I have to retake?" She kept screaming that her score was legitimate. My dad, pale with embarrassment, hissed at her to shut up before the neighbors heard. My mom paced the floor, trying to comfort her while desperately brainstorming a solution. She told her not to worry, saying she was smart enough to ace it again. But my sister completely lost her mind. She threw a screaming tantrum, thrashing around and demanding that I be forced to take it with her. She wanted me sitting right next to her. She lunged at me, digging her nails deep into my arm, her eyes bloodshot. "You have to come with me tomorrow," she screamed. I violently shook her hands off. I coldly told her that I was already finished and had no reason to babysit her. My sister stared at me in total disbelief, shocked that I would dare refuse. Naturally, my mother rushed over to take her side. She yelled at me to help her, claiming our family's entire reputation was on the line. I stared at them, feeling a mixture of pity and disgust. Our reputation. What they really meant was my sister's pride. None of that had anything to do with me. I flatly refused, walked into my room, and locked the door behind me, ignoring their screams. Of course, the education board immediately threw out their ridiculous request. So my sister had to take the test completely alone. They set up a room at the education bureau with 24-hour cameras and 3 proctors, staring at her the entire time, making sure she couldn't pull any tricks. Unsurprisingly, she completely bombed it, scoring a pathetic 157. She barely had a 300-point baseline anyway, and had spent the last semester daydreaming and dating instead of opening a single book. The day the results dropped, I was working at the construction site when a friend texted me her score of 157. I stopped, then burst out laughing so hard my coworker thought I had heat stroke. I told him I was just incredibly happy. The retake stripped away her final mask. Going from 751 to 157 completely broke the internet, and the comments were pure gold. People mocked that 157 was her actual intelligence level, proving the 751 was fraud. Unable to handle the backlash, she tried posting old report cards to defend herself, but she was thoroughly doxxed by the all-powerful netizens. Her bizarre, sudden surge during senior year after scoring a hopeless 300 points convinced everyone this girl was cheating. Along the way, they even dug up my own transcript. Every major exam score of mine, from elementary school through high school, was dragged into the light, always in the top 3, a real rock-solid academic beast. Netizens commented, "Are they actually siblings? How is the gap this huge? And one is the top scorer, while the other can barely even pass." Staring at those comments, my chest tightened with mixed emotions. I used to think perfect grades would finally make my parents love me, but I eventually realized that no matter how high I scored, I would never measure up to Lin Zhaoxiao, because what they wanted wasn't an outstanding son, but a safety net for their precious daughter. The teachers and classmates who once worshipped Lin Zhaoxiao now avoided her like the plague. Even our parents couldn't step outside without neighbors pointing and whispering behind their backs. They sneered about how the neighbor's daughter was just a brainless fraud who had cheated everyone. For years, what an absolute disgrace. During that time, Lin Zhaoxiao hid in her room like a cornered rat, curtains drawn tight. Refusing to let anyone see her, she even made mom leave meals at her door. Meanwhile, I packed my bags, clutched my acceptance letter to the prestigious medical school, and headed back to the countryside to stay with Grandpa. I figured that once late August arrived and school started, I would finally be free. At least that is what I thought. Summer in the countryside was hot, like a steamer, but my mind was at peace. Grandpa's old cottage sat at the foot of the mountain. 3 simple mud rooms with an old locust tree out front. The endless buzzing of cicadas was actually soothing. This was my real home. Ever since I could remember, I had been dumped here under the guise of good countryside air for my health. In reality, they just found me an eyesore. They wanted Lin Zhaoxiao to monopolize all their love and resources. I was just unwanted competition. Grandpa never spoke ill of my parents though. He just quietly looked after me, teaching me how to read and write and reminding me to rely on myself. His favorite lesson was that studying is the only ticket out for kids like us. I carved that truth deep into my bones. I stayed at the old house for over 20 days, waking up early to help feed the chickens, reading in the courtyard all morning, walking the fields with him in the afternoon, and sitting under the locust tree to cool off at night. He would tell me about the old days, how mischievous Dad was as a kid, how hardworking Mom was when she first married in. Hearing these unfamiliar stories felt like listening to someone else's family. In my memory, my parents were never those people. One night as we sat in the courtyard under the bright moonlight, Grandpa suddenly asked how I did on my college exams. I thought for a moment and answered honestly, "I think I did pretty well." Grandpa nodded, a rare gleam shining in his cloudy eyes. He looked up at the moon and after a quiet pause murmured, "That is good, that is good." He sighed, his voice sounding a bit raspy. "Grandpa never made much of himself, so I am counting on you." I looked down, my throat tightening. In my entire life he was the only one who had ever said that to me. The only one who truly wanted me to succeed. "Grandpa, once I graduate and get a job, I am moving you to the city with me." He waved his hand, smiling like a kid. "I could never get used to the city, just knowing you care is enough." That night, lying on the brick bed listening to the crickets, I thought, once the scores are officially out, everything will finally be set in stone. I will show everyone that I, Lin Tian, am not a punching bag to be bullied. Nor am I anyone's stepping stone. On August 12th, with just over 2 weeks before classes started, I was helping Grandpa dry corn in the yard. We were spreading golden cobs of corn across bamboo mats when the phone in my pocket suddenly buzzed. It was Mom. I froze. She almost never called me. The last time she did was right before my exams, asking how many points I could score. Her voice dripping with suspicion and calculation. I picked up, and instantly heavy sobbing echoed through the line. Her voice sounded raspy and desperate. "Tian, you need to come home right now. Your dad collapsed. He is not going to make it." My heart immediately dropped and the basket in my hands almost slipped. "What is wrong with him? Which hospital is he in?" I demanded. But Mom just sobbed, ignoring my questions, desperately repeating, "Just come back, come back." And then she hung up. I stood there, my head spinning. Grandpa came out of the house, saw my expression, and asked what happened. When I told him, his face paled and he urged me to pack my bags. "No matter what, he is your father, you have to go." I nodded, rushed inside, and scrambled to pack a few clothes into my backpack before I stepped out. Grandpa hurried after me and pressed a heavy cloth bundle into my hands. "Take this," he insisted. "It is some emergency money I saved up." I opened it to find a stack of crumpled, messy bills. In total it was about 2,000 yuan. It was his life savings, scraped together coin by coin from selling eggs and homegrown vegetables. I tried to force it back, but he had already turned inside. His hunched back looked so tiny and frail in the doorway. Holding that bundle, my eyes stung with tears. The trip from the village to the county seat took 2 hours by bus, followed by a 3-hour train to the city, and then a bullet train. The whole journey would take nearly 10 hours. I caught the earliest bus. Sitting on that bumpy ride, watching the scenery blur past, my frantic mind began to clear. Something was wrong, way too many things were off. My mother's weeping had been incredibly exaggerated. It felt like a cheap performance. Plus, she never specified his illness, what hospital he was at, or even how serious his condition actually was. She just blindly begged me to hurry back. If it were a real emergency, she would have said, "Your dad is at this hospital, get here now." Not "come back." Back where? To our apartment. If he was fighting for his life, why was she sitting at home calling me? Her tone also carried a bizarre, desperate urgency. It did not sound like a wife worried about her husband. It sounded like she was terrified I wouldn't show up. The more I analyzed it, the fishier it got. I dialed my dad's cell phone. Busy. I tried again, but it was still busy. Pivoting, I called one of my dad's coworkers, an uncle I had met a few times. I politely asked if anything had happened to my father. He sounded completely taken aback. "Huh? Your dad treated us all to dinner last week. He is perfectly healthy. Did something happen?" "Oh, it is nothing. I probably misheard." I made a quick excuse and hung up. He was lying. Absolutely lying. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the passing mountains. And the heavy weight in my chest actually vanished. I am not cold-blooded. I just know this family all too well. If my father were actually on his deathbed, Lin Zhaoxiao would already be crying and playing the victim online to harvest cheap sympathy. There is no way it would be this quiet. Since this is a scam, what is their goal in baiting me back? I spent hours trying to untangle this puzzle, and the answer was blindingly obvious. Lin Zhaoxiao's scandal was too massive. Her ridiculous 751 score was still trending. Even if she repeated a year, she would never get into a good college. Without me, she is absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, I was heading to my top-tier university to start an entirely new life, escaping this toxic swamp forever. They would never allow that to happen. In their eyes, my only value is to serve as Lin Jiaoxia's stepping stone, her tool, her personal blood bag. Once I realized this, my anxiety completely evaporated. In fact, I even felt the cool confidence of a hunter waiting for his prey to walk into a trap. Except this time, the hunter and the prey are switching places. Since they want to put on an act, I will play along to the very end. But the final script belongs to me. On the train, I used Grandpa's money to buy a cheap burner phone and a power bank. I fully charged both devices, downloaded a stealth recording app that auto-saves directly to the cloud, and tested it 3 times to ensure it was absolutely foolproof. I also messaged some future roommates from my university group chat, briefly explaining my situation. I told them to call the police if I went dark for more than 48 hours. And shared my live location with them. Better safe than sorry. Holy crap, bro, your family is that messed up? Do not worry, we have got your back, go handle your business. If anything goes south, we will call the cops immediately. Stay safe and keep us posted. Reading those messages, a wave of warmth washed over me. Total strangers were willing to help me, while my so-called flesh and blood were trying to push me directly into a furnace. Talk about poetic irony. By the time I reached home, it was late afternoon. The setting sun painted the old apartment building a dusty amber. Gripping my suitcase, I stood downstairs, looking up at the place where I had spent 12 years, yet never once felt a shred of belonging. I took a deep breath, walked upstairs, and knocked. The door opened to reveal Mom. Her eyes were red and puffy. Seeing me, she froze for a split second, then instantly plastered on a fake, fawning smile. "Oh, Chan, you are finally back. Come in, come in." Her bizarre enthusiasm gave me instant goosebumps. When had she ever been this attentive to me in my entire life? I calmly walked inside, my eyes quickly scanning the living room. Dad was sitting comfortably on the sofa watching TV, remote in hand, looking perfectly healthy. He did not look sick at all. I stood in the entryway, still gripping my suitcase handle, and asked in a flat voice, "I thought Dad was on his deathbed. Why is he watching TV?" The air in the room instantly froze. Dad glanced up, looking highly uncomfortable, while Mom's fake smile stiffened. She quickly sputtered, "Oh, it was just a false alarm. Your dad felt terrible yesterday, but the hospital said it was nothing serious. We just figured, since you are heading off to college soon, we wanted to get everyone together. You know, as a family." Hearing the word family leave her mouth was disgustingly ironic. We did not call her out, only nodding in response. As I walked past, my peripheral vision caught Lin Jiaoxiao on the other end of the couch. She was huddled in the corner, hair a wild mess, face sallow, with deep purple bruises under her eyes. She looked nothing like the proud golden girl she was a few months ago. Seeing me, she looked up with a complex mix of resentment, fear, and something else I could not quite read. Pretending not to see, I walked straight to my room to drop my bags. My room was at the very back, barely a few square yards, completely starved of sunlight. Growing up, this was the utility closet, only cleared out when I returned from Grandpa's house for school. Meanwhile, Lin Jiaoxiao had the massive, sun-drenched, south-facing bedroom. The resources in this house were always split with absolute inequality. I shut the door and immediately swept the room, checking the desk, bookshelf, closet, and under the bed. Once I was sure nothing had been tampered with, I pulled the burner phone from my bag, hiding it at a perfect angle inside a pile of junk on the shelf, pointing the camera directly at the door. I started the stealth recording app and muted all alerts, ensuring zero sound or light while filming. Once everything was set, I lay back on the bed, pretending to doze off, but keeping my ears sharp to capture every single murmur from the living room. That evening, Mom made a huge feast. Uncharacteristically, she called me to dinner and even piled food onto my plate. You have lost weight, Tian, she said. Eat up before you leave. The food tasted like cardboard. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what they were up to. When would they show their fangs? After dinner, Dad cleared his throat, sounding like he was about to give a lecture. Tian, he said, the reason we had you come back this time, well, there is actually something we need to discuss with you. I looked up, putting on a perfectly confused face. He continued, your sister is not doing well. You know how hard the college entrance exam hit her. She is severely depressed now and won't even leave her room. Your mother and I discussed it. You are her twin brother, her closest relative. Can you spend more time with her and help her through this? Is that all? I waited for them to show their real hand. Sure enough, Mom chimed in, her tone testing the waters. Exactly, Tian, you two are twins, blood is thicker than water, your family, what is wrong with helping your sister? I stayed silent, just staring at them. The tension in the room built up until suddenly, Lin Jiaoxiao looked up. Her eyes were red and her voice trembled. Brother, I know I was wrong, okay? I have realized everything. I should not have treated you that way. Can you give me another chance? I almost laughed out loud. Her acting had improved, but I was not buying it. I asked them what they really wanted, tearing away the polite lies. I had zero patience for their games. Dad and Mom exchanged glances and Dad finally started negotiating. It is like this, we found a way to get Jiaoxiao into college too. I raised an eyebrow, signaling him to keep going. He said, Jiaoxiao told us about the exam scores. You should know how the scoring pattern works better than us. There is a special connection between you two. As long as you are there, she gets high scores. My heart skipped a beat. She actually told them my secret. Dad stood up and walked over to me, his tone leaving no room for debate. So your mom and I decided. Can you delay college by a year? Repeat senior year and take the exam with Jiaoxiao next year. That way she can get into a good school too. Having two kids at top universities would bring so much honor to our family. I froze. Not because of how absurd the request was, but because of how entitled they sounded, as if sacrificing my future to make Lin Jiaoxiao successful was completely normal. Mom struck while the iron was hot, grabbing my hand with a calculating look in her eyes. Tian, this does not hurt you. You are so smart, you will definitely get in again next year. With the top scorer title and an extra year of studying, the elite schools will definitely be begging you to join them. Plus, Jiaoxiao gets a bright future. Is that not a win-win? I already have my acceptance letter, I said. Why should I repeat a year? Dad just dismissed this. What does a piece of paper matter? If you do not show up, it just expires. Tian, you are the older brother, why can you not just give in to your sister? Later, when she makes it big, she will share her wealth with you. I felt like I was listening to the funniest joke in the world. I refuse, I said. Dad's face instantly darkened and Mom's expression turned cold. Lin Jiaoxiao snapped her head up, her pleading eyes instantly turning into a vicious glare. Dad stood up, looking down at me threateningly. Lin Tian, what kind of attitude is that? We are discussing this with you nicely and you just reject us flatly. You want me to give up my dream school? Repeat a year with someone who scored 157. And use my score to get her into college? On what grounds? Because she is your sister. You are her brother, it is only natural to help her. I have helped her for 18 years. From childhood you gave her all the resources and dumped me. In the countryside, ignored. Now that she ruined her own life, you suddenly remember me. You want me to sacrifice my future to clean up her mess? Dad slammed the table. Lin Tian, what kind of attitude is that? This is my attitude, I am not doing it. I turned to walk to my room. Behind me, Lin Jiaoxiao screamed hysterically, Lin Tian, how dare you? Those points were supposed to be mine. Without me, you are nothing. Lin Jiaoxiao, listen carefully, I earned every single point with my own hands. They have absolutely nothing to do with you. Stealing my scores was your luck, not your talent. And definitely not a bargaining chip to threaten me with. Lin Zhaoxiao was speechless, tears streaming down her face out of sheer frustration. Mom rushed over to shield her, pointing at me. Lin Tian, you made your sister cry like this. Do you have any conscience left? I could not be bothered to argue with them anymore. I went into my room and locked the door behind me. Outside, things were being thrown and smashed, mixed with Dad's shouting, Mom's sobbing, and Zhaoxiao's screams. It sounded like absolute chaos. I leaned against the door and closed my eyes, listening to the noise. My heart was surprisingly calm. Tonight was just round one. The real battle was still ahead, and they would not give up easily. Let them try, I have plenty of patience. I did not sleep at all that night, staring at the ceiling and keeping alert. Around 2 a.m., I heard quiet rustling outside my door, like whispered voices. I held my breath and listened carefully. It was Dad and Mom. Mom whispered, Lao Lin, what if we take his things while he is asleep? Without his ID card and acceptance letter, let us see how he can leave. His light is off, so he must be asleep. Let us do it tonight to avoid any trouble later. Footsteps approached my door. My heart raced, but I stayed completely still. Pretending to be asleep, the doorknob turned gently. I was glad I had locked the door. Outside, Mom swore in a low voice, this kid locked the door. Whatever, we will do it tomorrow. He cannot escape anyway. The footsteps slowly faded away. I opened my eyes, staring at the ceiling in the dark and sneering. As expected, they never planned on letting me leave. The moment I stepped into this house, I walked into a trap, but what they did not know was I had prepared for this long ago. The game was far from over. The next morning, I tried the doorknob, locked from the outside. My heart sank. I walked to the window, but heavy metal bars blocked it completely. They were welded shut. I could not get out. The phone signal worked, but the internet was cut. I used my data to text my roommates, telling them I was safe for now but to stand by. Around 10 a.m., the door opened. Mom walked in with a bowl of porridge and a fake smile. Hungry? Eat something. Have you changed your mind? I did not take the bowl. She put it on the desk and sighed, her voice turning threatening. Tian, let me give you some advice, be smart. Even if you got into a top university, who is going to pay for your tuition and living expenses? Do you really think we are going to give you a single penny? You won't even be able to afford school. You will have to come back anyway. Besides, who knows if your acceptance letter will even exist by then? If you just cooperate and repeat a year, we will support you next year, but if you do not listen to us. She did not finish, but the threat was clear. I stayed silent. After she left, the lock clicked again. I was officially under house arrest. On the first day, I managed to stay calm, but by the second day, anxiety kicked in, not from fear, but because time was slipping away. The start of the semester was getting closer. On the third night, around 2 a.m., while everyone slept, I crept out of bed. I used the metal file on my nail clippers to pick the lock. These old spring locks are easy. After 10 minutes, a soft click echoed. The door opened. Holding my breath, I crept out into the pitch-black living room. I felt my way along the wall, my heart hammering in my chest. The floorboards creaked softly under my feet. With every step, I stopped to listen. Only when I was sure it was quiet did I move forward. Just as my hand reached for the doorknob, the lights flashed on. I froze. Dad stood in the hallway holding a wooden club, his face pale with rage. He had been waiting for me, trying to run. I turned and bolted. But it was too late. He lunged forward. Mom and Lin Zhaoxiao stood nearby, watching coldly. Nobody tried to stop him. When Dad finally stopped to catch his breath, he glared down at me. You will never escape this house unless you agree to repeat senior year. I lay on the floor, my body shaking, not from fear, but from raw rage. 18 years of swallowing my anger almost exploded from my chest, but I held back. It was not time yet. My evidence was not enough, and my backup plan was not ready. I was dragged back and thrown on the bed. They added a heavy new lock. A heavy padlock on the outside, impossible to pick. I lay on my bed, my back burning with pain, but the agony only made me sharper. For the next 2 days, I behaved, eating and sleeping normally. On the surface, I acted like I had given up. My parents thought I was broken and loosened their guard a bit, but the door was still locked. I still couldn't get out. I used those 2 days to carefully observe their routine. Memorizing when everyone went to sleep and when they got up, I memorized every detail, waiting for the perfect moment. On the fourth night, they finally made their move. At 2:07 a.m., I heard the lock click softly. It wasn't tentative, but someone was actually unlocking the door. I kept my eyes closed, breathing steadily, pretending to be asleep, but every nerve was on edge. The door creaked open, footsteps were incredibly faint, as if afraid to wake me. It was two people. Judging by the breathing, one was my mother and the other was my father. They crept to my desk and began searching. I stayed in my sleeping pose, but my heart raced. I knew exactly what they were looking for: my ID card and my college acceptance letter. Those two things were my ticket out of this hell, and their leverage to trap me. The rustling went on for minutes, then I heard my mother whisper, "We can't find them." "Where did he hide them?" "Keep looking. They must be in this room, he couldn't have taken them out." They ransacked my drawers, my bookshelf, and my backpack, even checking my pockets. Then I felt someone walk over and stand by my bed, hesitating to search my pillow. "Did you find them?" "SHH, don't wake him up." Lin Zhaoxiao barged in impatiently, her footsteps much louder than my parents'. Clearly, she didn't care about waking me. I felt her stand right by my bed, staring down at me. Her gaze was as cold as a venomous snake. I could literally feel her breath on my face. Then her voice rang out, chillingly confident. "Stop pretending, I know you are awake." She didn't linger on it though. She just joined the search, her movements far more violent than my parents'. Books were yanked off my shelves one by one and slammed to the floor. The drawers were ripped completely out. I had hidden my ID inside my pillowcase lining, and my acceptance letter was folded tiny and sewn into my suitcase. I thought they would never find them, but I underestimated her madness. She ripped my pillow away and began feeling it, inch by inch. Like she was searching for contraband, she did not miss a single corner. When her fingers stopped at the hidden layer, she let out a thrilled shriek. "Found it." My chest tightened, but I stayed still. Then she pounced on my suitcase, dumped everything out, and started ripping at the lining. The sound of tearing fabric was excruciatingly loud. Her nails scraped against the fabric until she finally felt that hard object. I could not take it anymore. I bolted upright and clicked on the bedside lamp. She stood there, clutching an envelope. It was my university acceptance letter. Her face looked like she had struck gold, greedy and manic. I glared at them, my voice freezing cold as I asked what they were doing. They exchanged looks and dropped the act. My father slammed my ID card onto the desk, speaking with absolute entitlement. "We will get straight to the point. Zhaoxiao told us everything. As long as you are here, she gets high scores. This is just family destiny. So just accept it." "Zhao Ocean, listen to your mother. Repeating a year is not bad for you. You are so smart. You will easily get in next year. Then Zhaoxiao goes to college too, and we will have to top-tier students. It is a win-win." I told them. "No way." I lunged to grab my ID, but my father shoved me back. I stumbled and hit the wall, my back wound, burning with sharp pain. He leaned in close, threatening me. "No. You think you actually have a choice? From now on, you go nowhere. Without your ID and letter, you can forget about the top universities. You will only stay home and study. Next year after the exam, you can still go to your dream school. No one is hurting you." I took a deep breath, forcing down my rising rage. It was not the time to blow my cover. I needed more evidence. So I asked them, "You came tonight to confiscate my things?" My mother sneered, not even trying to hide her true colors anymore. "Confiscate? Parents control everything in this house. You are still a child. Why shouldn't we keep your ID safe?" I looked over at her. She was pulling the acceptance letter out of the envelope, looking incredibly smug. She held it up like a war trophy. Then she did something I will never forget, clutching the paper, her eyes burning with Pure hatred. She slowly, deliberately ripped it in half right in front of me. The sharp, tearing sound sliced through the room. Unsatisfied, she kept tearing those pieces into tiny shreds. Drifting to the floor like snowflakes, she took her time, my gateway to a new life shredded. Staring at me, she laughed like a lunatic. Your letter is gone, let us see you register now. You will spend your life being my stepping stone, I want you to rot in the mud with me. She shook, disheveled, looking completely unhinged. Why do you get to be better than me? Why does everyone praise you? Why do you get elite schools while I get mocked at home? That life was supposed to be mine. Tears streamed down her face, driven not by sadness but by resentment, jealousy, and madness. But then her voice suddenly dropped to a whisper, as if talking to herself or to me. Do you know how terrified I was? I always knew my grades were fake, stolen from you. Her face contorted as she confessed she was terrified before every exam, afraid I would stop or fail, exposing her as a fraud. Sobbing, she screamed that she hated me for being smarter. Hilariously, she actually believed I got those top marks without even trying. I hate myself even more. Without you, I am nothing. You cannot leave, you have to stay, you must be my stepping stone forever. That is the only way I survive. Looking at this girl I had called my sister for 18 years, she just seemed pathetic. But that was no excuse to forgive her. It was no excuse to ruin my life either. My parents stood there watching her hysterical fit, and not one of them stopped her. They actually looked proud, as if she had won some victory. Watching this unfold, it felt absurd and tragic. This was my family. Blood is thicker than water. I looked down at the shredded paper on the floor, shoulders shaking. They thought I was weeping, totally broken. My mother scoffed, condescending as always. Oh, stop crying, it is no big deal. Just take the exam again next year, consider this a lesson. Be obedient from now on. I said nothing. I just knelt down, picking up the pieces with trembling hands. Seeing my misery, she laughed harder. Cry. Keep crying. This is your destiny. I looked up, she froze, there were no tears in my eyes. There was only freezing hatred and a fleeting smirk. Startled by that look, she took a step back and demanded to know what was funny. I slowly stood up, my voice raspy but calm. Nothing. I was just thinking that was quite a performance. If life does not work out, you can become an actor. I stopped there, acting defeated as I slumped onto the bed, staring blankly and muttering. Watching me, her suspicion slowly faded, replaced by the smug triumph of a winner. Scared now. Too late. My father sneered, stuffing my ID card into his pocket. Everyone go sleep, he goes nowhere from now on. The three walked out like they had accomplished a mission. Before leaving, my mother locked the door. The quiet click felt like a thunderclap in my head. Locked in, the room went dark again. I sat there, listening to their footsteps fade, waiting for the house to go silent. Then I stood up and walked to the bookshelf, searching the junk until I found my spare phone. It had been recording the entire time. They ransacked the room but ignored the pile they thought was garbage. The video captured everything: her manic shredding, my parents watching coldly, egging her on. Their confession to this entire conspiracy was caught on camera. I uploaded it to the cloud, making multiple backups so it was completely secure. Then, I edited a short clip and posted it online with the caption, "This is the toxic family I was trying to escape." I dialed the police. I am being held captive by my family. The dispatcher asked for my address. I answered all his questions. He told me to wait, they were sending someone. I muted my phone, hid it in the junk pile, and climbed back into bed. My heart was pounding, but I had to look completely calm. I didn't know how long they'd take or what might happen first. But I knew if I survived tonight, everything would change. Time dragged on. Outside, the sky began to turn gray. My eyes stayed wide open, staring at the ceiling, my ears strained for the slightest noise. At 4:23 a.m., I heard footsteps. It was Lin Zhaoxiao. She walked softly, trying not to wake anyone, but in the dead silence, it was painfully clear. As she stopped outside my door, I held my breath, staying completely still. The lock clicked. She was inside. I shut my eyes, pretending to sleep while my heart drummed in my ears. She stood by my bed, her eyes burning into me with suspicion, then she began pacing around the room. Her footsteps faded and returned like a predator patrolling its territory. I had no idea what she was looking for, but a cold dread washed over me. The footsteps stopped at the bookshelf, my chest tightened. I heard rustling. She was digging through my things. I gripped the blanket, my mind racing. What would I do if she found the phone? Suddenly, the searching stopped, the air froze, I could hear my pulse thumping. What is this? She found it, it was over. I bolted upright, eyes wide, just as she lifted my spare phone. The screen was glowing, the recording light still flashing red, her face twisted from confusion to shock, then pure rage. Lin-chan, you are recording us? She shrieked, lunging at me like a wild animal. I had absolutely no time to react. Her nails tore across my face, leaving a burning sting. I grabbed her wrists as we wrestled. She was a girl, but she fought with insane, terrifying strength. We slammed into the nightstand, sending the lamp crashing down. The racket woke my parents instantly. My father burst into the room and, without a single question, violently shoved me back. How dare you strike your sister? Clutching my throbbing head, I gasped for air, saying, I did not touch her. She attacked me first. Lin Zhaoxiao scrambled up from the floor, still gripping my phone. She scrambled behind my father, looking for a shield. Dad. He secretly recorded us. He has everything on video. My father's face turned pale. He snatched the phone, stared at the screen. And the veins on his forehead bulged with rage. You really are a piece of work, Lin-chan. He threw the phone to the floor violently, smashing the screen, then he stomped on it repeatedly, grinding it into useless scrap metal. I watched him destroy it, but I didn't panic. The footage was already safe in the cloud. That phone was just a decoy, but I kept my face blank, forcing a look of utter devastation. As if my last hope had been crushed, my mother rushed in next, her face twisted in disgust. I am telling you, Lin-chan, this is not over, and you are not going anywhere. If you post anything online, you will pay the price. He stormed out, cursing, telling my mother to watch me closely. Zhao Tian, you have disappointed me so much. We did all this for our family. Why can't you just understand? Reflect on your actions. She walked out, and the door clicked locked once again. This time, they dragged something heavy to block the door. I heard a chair scraping against the floor. Left alone in the wreckage, I leaned against the wall, touching my swollen face. They had no idea the police were coming, or that the video was already viral. They thought destroying my phone saved them, clueless that the real storm had only just begun. Time passed, dawn broke. Around 6 a.m. my father's phone rang, followed by his panic shouting, "What video? Who posted this?" Then came my mother's piercing shriek and Lin Zhaoxiao's sobbing. The entire house erupted into chaos. I smiled. The video had exploded online. I don't know how much time passed, maybe half an hour, maybe an hour passed before a loud, heavy pounding rattled the front door. Police. Open up. We received a report. Who called them? What do we do? Don't panic. Hide the boy. Tell them he is not home. In my room, I listened as they scrambled. Hide him? Where? This is the police. Open the door immediately or we will use force. My father finally cracked. I heard the door open, followed by a flurry of voices. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I knew he was desperately trying to lie his way out. A few minutes later, the obstruction blocking my door was dragged away. The door swung open to reveal two uniformed police officers. Seeing me, their faces hardened. The younger officer stepped inside. Are you Lin Tian, the person who posted the video? I nodded. He stared at the bloody scratches on my face, my swollen lip, and the wrecked room. His expression turned grim. You are injured. Who did this to you? My father, I said. Officer, this is a family matter. What is wrong with teaching my own son a lesson? The older cop glared back at him. A family matter? False imprisonment. And restricting his freedom is a family matter. We received a call that someone was locked inside by his own family. We also received a video. Watch this yourself. You call this a family matter? The clip showed my family ransacking my room and my sister shredding my admission letter like a lunatic. My father turned pale. My mother began to shake, nearly collapsing. Lin Jiaoxiao cowered in a corner, her hair a mess and her eyes completely blank. Like a crushed bug. We need you to come file a report. I nodded, stood up, and walked past the broken glass on the floor. When I walked past my father, he lunged to grab me. But an officer blocked him. You are under arrest for false imprisonment and assault. Back off. My father looked utterly defeated. He was furious, terrified, and completely helpless. I did not look back. I walked right out the door as my mother wailed behind me. Tian, you can't do this to us. We are your parents. How can we ever face our neighbors again? I stopped. You stopped treating me like a human being long ago. Now it is your turn to feel how that tastes. Lin Tian, you will regret this. I will destroy you. I stared at her twisted face and calmly whispered, Lin Jiaoxiao, remember this, from today on, we are completely dead to each other. I climbed into the police car and never looked back. By the time my statement was finished, it was already noon. Based on the video evidence and your statement, my father faced charges of assault and false imprisonment. Lin Jiaoxiao was also liable for destroying my admission letter. Even though the school sent it, it was my property. What about my university letter? You can get a replacement, the officer replied. Contact the school, we will write a formal reference to help you. I nodded. Walking outside, the sunlight was blinding. I stood on the steps, squinting up at the bright sky. It felt like I had finally woken up from an endless nightmare.